I was sitting across the table from a man who'd killed someone. Before the guard closed the door, he pointed to a phone bolted to the wall and said, "If you need anything, call that number. If no one answers, try again in 5 minutes." The clock on the wall was stuck at 2:26. As a neuropsychologist, I was there to evaluate the inmate. But what struck me wasn't just what he had done. It was how familiar his inner world sounded. See, I listened for the rule beneath the story, that instruction the nervous system lives by. And as he spoke, I heard the same rule in just about every sentence. I'm only safe when I'm on guard. Most of us don't call it that. We call it striving, protecting, performing, pleasing, but that's why this matters so much farther beyond that room in the jail. Because honestly, we're all living by some version of that rule. It pulls our attention away from what matters, and it organizes our lives around protection. And something deeper. We start to lose that inner sense that we're okay just as we are. And that's what I call worth. Not ego, not confidence, worth, this inner sense that we're okay without having to earn anything. And when we lose that sense, the brain starts predicting danger everywhere. So today, I'm going to show you how that pattern works, how it changes what you notice, and how little by little you can begin to update it too. Well, I learned all that way before I could explain it. I learned it first in my body, in a moment that I wasn't proving or performing. I was 13 in the middle of a guitar solo on a Stevie Ray Vaughan track. Volume up, distortion on, my fingers are moving effortlessly without thought, and then suddenly something in me unclenches. My breath deepens, my shoulders drop, and I feel this sense of ease come over me. It wasn't adrenaline or ego, it was just peace. And looking back, that was one of the first real moments I felt worth in my body, because I wasn't proving, I wasn't planning, I wasn't performing, and in that moment, my body knew the difference. But as it goes, I didn't know how to live there yet. So I spent the next 15 years trying to get back to that experience the only way I knew how. Effort. Performance, productivity, relentless striving, and from the outside, everything looked like it was going really well, but on the inside, I was tired, exhausted, just depleted. Because effort had become my body's primary way of belonging. And so I kept living under this assumption. The moment I'd hit the goal or the milestone, I could finally relax. But it didn't really work out that way. The beautiful family, the research lab, the faculty appointment, all of these data points just to prove that I was enough, but the moment that I'd get the goal, to the milestone, the satisfaction left just as quickly. So I'd start scanning again. Well, I'd hit the goal, smile briefly, then start scanning. What's next? What do I still need to do? Where am I still not enough? Until one morning, I had a breakthrough. I sat alone in the dark on my meditation cushion. No one else was awake. My stomach was churning with that almost nausea feeling, like something was imminent. And then a question rose up. What is the purpose of all of this? And in that moment, it was like a valve released. All the emotion came up: anger, rage, sadness, grief, so many tears. And underneath That emotional flood was a realization that was so clear that I could no longer avoid it. I could not achieve my way into worth. And so for the first time, I sat with the shame, the anxiety of this unworthiness. I didn't optimize it, I didn't analyze it or spiritualize it. I just let it be there. And to my surprise, it softened. In that moment, what lifted wasn't my life, it was my struggle with it. And that was my first real glimpse that worth wasn't something I could manufacture. It was a feeling that was always there that I had forgotten how to feel. Well, I got really excited by this revelation, and I started asking the question a lot. Okay, well, if I couldn't manufacture this worth, how else do I feel it more regularly in my body? So I took it everywhere in my work, across clinics, classrooms, hospital rooms, boardrooms, and even jail cells, and I was seeing the same pattern everywhere. When we lose our sense of worth, fear doesn't just change how we feel, it changes what we notice. A pattern that the brain learns, it's going to look for it everywhere. And so in this regard, attention shapes your experience. Let me show you how. I want you to look around and count everything you see that's red. Now, without looking again, how many things did you see that were blue? It's a little bit of a trick, I know. Obviously, you weren't paying attention to it. This is how the brain is working all the time. Day in and day out, moment to moment, it's making predictions about what's important, what's dangerous, what matters. And when fear fuels the prediction, attention starts to narrow around it. We start counting red. We might start having thoughts like, what could go wrong? Or where am I still not enough? Or who might reject us? But what's worse than that is that we're not just detecting threat more easily, we're missing really important things too. Care, connection, warmth, all the things that are already okay. The blue. Which is what brings me back to the man in the jail. His nervous system was so contracted around fear that he was completely unable to recognize safety, even though it was right there with him in the room. And that's not to say that any of us will commit violence to that extent, but these patterns show up in our lives in very quiet ways. Some of us cope through performance, others through shutting down, others disappear through scrolling, through addictions, through caretaking, or just being busy. Different strategies, same protection. Which is why in neuroscience, one way change happens is when the brain gets new information it didn't expect, a moment that doesn't fit with the old rule. This is how the prediction starts to update. And this is one of the ways that love is important because it provides the body with new evidence. Let me give you an example from my life with my 3-year-old daughter. So we're having this great evening, laughing and playing, and just everything was going right. I put her down to sleep, I kiss her forehead, and I go, "I love you, sweetheart." And she looks up at me and goes, "I love mommy more." So my brain is now going a mile a minute. How do I fix this problem? Am I going to negotiate with this toddler? How do I get back in the first place? Why are we even talking about mom? And then my attention starts to drop to the innocence in her eyes. In that moment, my body received new information in that instant. And that's what neuroscience calls a prediction error. The body received the update in that moment. My shoulders dropped. My breath returned. And a new sentence emerged. I love mommy too. And that wasn't just a moral victory. That was an update. And that's just one of the ways that love gets in. Because love isn't just some romance or sentiment. It's the repeated act of you facing fear with enough gentleness that you don't feel like you have to grip so hard. Which is why I think about that man in the jail. As we're wrapping up, I asked him a question I hadn't planned. When did you first feel like you had to be on guard? He looked at me and thought about it and goes, 6. My mom left and felt like if I didn't toughen up, no one else was going to stay. In that moment, I wasn't just seeing the man, I was experiencing the child there too, and beneath the armor, I could see the rule that he had built his life around. So I said, it sounds like you were trying to love with everything you had. And he said, yeah, I just never stopped fighting. Sometimes I just didn't know what for. And that moment has stuck with me because it revealed something that I now believe deeply. That is, healing begins when we can start to recognize the protection underneath the pattern. So, for you, when you feel like your system is counting red, try this. Name what feels dangerous. Then, if you can, find one real sign of connection or care or okayness that's already here. Then pause long enough to let it land. Because sometimes beginning again can be this small. Which is why I still think about that room in the jail, that clock bolted into the wall and the guard's words. If no one answers, try again in 5 minutes. But maybe that's how love gets in. Not all at once, but in small returns. And if we miss it the first time, we can try again in 5 minutes.